This was the biggest and most important podcast the developers of Escape from Tarkov have ever done. From huge new quality of life improvements, new mechanics coming to the game, and then finally acknowledging and letting us know how they're going to fix the core issues of the game that we've been asking for forever. So let's get into it. So I'm going to try and condense the most important parts of about 2 hours worth of information into this video as quickly as possible. If you like it, think about dropping a like or subscribing to the channel here. But diving right into it, they started off with this teaser trailer for something. We don't know exactly what it was, but it was this teaser trailer where somebody was able to see that there's some really cool loot in a box. He loaded into the game and it couldn't find that box. And so there was a lot of layers to it, but basically it seemed like what they were trying to get at was like another step of dynamic loot where there might be in-game events where really rare loot is going to spawn in a specific place and not always in that same location or not always in that same box, or the box that rare loot spawns in might move around. We obviously don't know a lot, but it was a really interesting teaser. There was also some kind of subtle teasers in there as well to like interesting stuff for the hideout, like a gun rack or stuff like that. Then they talked about how they've been focusing on cheaters and bugs. This was the first time they mentioned it. They mentioned it a few times, really nailing home that the biggest focus for them is optimizing the game, fixing bugs, and getting rid of cheaters, which is what we all want. They said that the new anti-cheat features have been very helpful. They've banned a ton of cheaters. They've got some new BattleEye stuff in there. And they specifically talked about more plans, quote unquote, something big that's coming that will make it a nightmare for cheat developers to make cheats. Obviously, he's not going to go into too much detail there, but even if it's copium, at least there's something to look forward to that they're actively working on, not just banning cheaters, but also making it harder to make and distribute cheats. So take that as you will. They talked about lots of bug fixes coming and that they do have some sort of roadmap or plan for the year. The big thing is Unity 2021. He said this is going to be a big endeavor, but with the new engine, they're going to be able to do optimizations, new technologies, graphical updates, help with RAM consumption and memory leaks, just general resource management. The game could load faster. He talked about a few different timelines. He said in the past, they had said there's going to be a technical patch in April. This time he said April/May, but then he also said there's going to be a big patch coming in May. So I don't know if there's a small technical patch coming potentially at the end of this month and then a big patch in May, if there's just one big patch coming in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Not really sure. The timelines there got a little weird, but we have some big stuff to look forward to somewhere towards the end of April throughout May. One of the biggest and most important things they talked about was some huge technical stuff that's coming in this big May patch and throughout the rest of the year. He talked about huge foundational changes to the network and how people are visualized on the server, which would allow for more PMCs on the maps. FPS should also increase. They said that they have tested 60 PMCs, 60 network entities on the engine, and that it worked really well. Already been tested. They're going to be able to drastically decrease the amount of network errors, and that they redesigned the core of the game with the help of some new technologies. Now, I'm not a game developer, and obviously we can't ask Nikita questions or really, grill him on this specific issue, but he just kept talking about that they redesigned the core of the game. So when we talk about spaghetti code and all the stuff that really like drags Tarkov down, it seems like what they've been working on the back end is kind of just like rewriting the code or parts of it instead of trying to fix what's broken. He actually specifically mentioned that instead of trying to just go back and constantly fix things that are broken, that they just kind of decided to rewrite a lot of it. So we're not exactly sure, exactly what that entails. However, he said that this was a huge thing that they've been working on and that it's leading to some very specific goals. He once again reiterated that they want to increase the amount of PMCs to up to 60 or more PMCs on the maps. Now, he said not every map. Streets is obviously the one where they want a lot of PMCs. I don't know if this is them kind of leaning into combining some of the maps, map-to-map travel, open world, because like the customs as it stands right now, 60 PMCs would be way too much. Obviously, he said not 60 on every one, but I'm not sure kind of the implications of that for all the maps. However, once again, he reiterated that this has already been tested. This is not a thing that they hope to do, that this is something they can do internally, that the core network engine basically was completely rewritten. Other goals that they stated with this big technical patch are much better hit reg, much better positional accuracy, FPS increase, reduced desync, and network traffic optimizations. This is everything we are wanting out of Escape from Tarkov right now. We don't necessarily want new features. We want the desync and the network and the stuff that's in the game to work and work well. So the fact that they're specifically calling out that they've rewritten big parts of the code and all around networking and increasing optimizations, and that all of this is coming pretty soon as well. He said that this is going to be basically like a 6 to 8 month process of getting all these things and all these goals accomplished. but we should see some of this in the game soon. He spoke of a second iteration of these big technical patches that's going to make culling of items, which is basically as you move from one zone to another, all the items that you didn't need to see before that you now need to see, a new system for culling so that it's much faster, so that there's much less load on the server and much less things need to be preloaded. This should also help decrease freezes and stutters and increase the FPS that we get. It allows them to optimize the game much faster. They talked a little bit here about how Streets isn't even a third of what they want it to be. So all of these technologies are going to help them make the map, the big Streets map that they wanted it to be. He mentioned briefly that generally they are really focusing on fixes in the core game, and that over 50% of the engineers working at BSG are working on this technical patch. Big thing. Somebody asked about the Recoil, and he said that a Recoil rework is planned. They're already designing it, but they're not having anything to show us as of now. He talked about some graphical changes that will come as a result of the technical patch and the new engine. Once again, the new culling system. He said that they already have it working internally on Streets and Lighthouse, which is helping them test it. Once again, performance increase. They talked about the background buildings on like Streets, all the skyscrapers and stuff like that we can't interact with, how they're optimizing the LOD on that. Basically, how close we are to them determines how much detail they need to have. And the more optimized that is, the more that we can save frames and performance when we're not looking at them or don't need those stuffs loaded. Once again, he discussed memory leaks, how that should get better, and that they're doing a lot of optimization around windows and glass, transparent objects, which are notoriously really hard on the game. There's lots of window panes and stuff on Streets, so optimizations around that could be very helpful on maps like that. They specifically showed off a video showing off some new animations around blind fire. So I think a lot of the players want the ability to be able to blind fire while moving. He didn't mention that, and they didn't show it in the video, but we got new animations for blind fire that definitely make it look much more usable, kind of like sharper angles, and it seemed like they were actually working it around the relative height of actual cover in Tarkov. It can definitely seem really hard to angle and do any sort of blind fire around doors or above your head, and these new animations look great, and it makes it look like blind fire can be actually much more of a utility. He spent quite a bit of time talking about the sound, acknowledging that a lot of tuning and adjustments needs to be made, which is very obvious if you play the game at all. He said it's very expensive from a development time standpoint, not financially, but it takes a lot of man hours to do it because a lot of this work is having to be done manually, and they need to do it in very specific ways to avoid huge performance drops. So they're trying to kind of, get an inch at a time and make it so that we don't tank the performance any more than it already is. There's a lot of stuff they want to do. The second iteration of the tuning of sounds, the refining of transition points, so as you move from outside to inside, and the blending of those transition points, so it's not just an on-off switch. You've got indoor ambient audio and outdoor ambient audio, but that there's actually some sort of blending there. Sound diffraction and geometry baking in Oculus, which is going to help sound like bend around objects and around corners. I've made some clips about how, once again, it's just a binary on-off, something's occluded. And in certain situations, the sound can be occluded even if you can see the object, or it can be occluded by something as little as an ATM. So the sound diffraction and geometry baking and all that kind of stuff helps the sound bounce around and actually sound more realistic in environments where it's partially occluded and partially not. They talked about reverb and all the different zones and different size rooms and how that can affect how audio sounds as well. They're fixing some stutters related to sounds that trigger some big audio bugs. And then they talked about some cool features that could come, like suppressor sound changing depending on the durability of the suppressor, and changes to the sound of subsonic ammunition, which is pretty cool. And then they actually showed some images of all of the manually drawn occlusion zones on Interchange. Obviously, Interchange is the only map that doesn't have those occlusion zones right now, and they showed how much work and how many of those things are kind of being drawn, and just like how big of a undertaking that is. A lot of that stuff is cool, and I love hearing about new features and the ways to make the sound better in the future. But to me, all that new, cool, fun stuff, the new features don't really excite me until we can just get the base audio working. On maps like Interchange, it's still atrocious. And even on maps that they've done some work like Shoreline, there's a lot more work to be done. So exciting, but I kind of want you to fix what we have first. He took a second again to reiterate that sound, optimizations, and networking are their focus right now. This is something that me and a lot of people have been saying for a long time, that all the cool guns and all the cool features in the world are cool, but if you can't trust what you hear or trust what you see, or if you don't have any FPS, then that experience isn't going to be fun. So him acknowledging again, sound, optimizations, and networking are their focus. That's a very big deal. He talked a little bit about some future Streets expansions, that they have the first expansion almost done, and that it's a pretty big expansion, but it's still not the entire map. There's going to be multiple Streets expansions. He talked about how the BTR is still coming. They're not sure sure when, but he said that an entire podcast could be dedicated around talking about that feature. So that's pretty interesting. There's going to be at least 2 more Streets bosses. One of them confirmed again that it's going to be the Streets boss that's holed up in the car dealership, which is basically a reinforced fortress with the boss, guards, mines, snipers, traps, all sorts of stuff like that. So cool, but we have no idea when that's coming. They hesitantly showed us a little teaser of vaulting. Nikita really didn't want to do it. Chad kind of bullied him into it. He really didn't want to show the teaser because it's very, very, very work in progress. But I'm glad that he did because, yeah, some of the feet weren't perfectly on the ground or whatever, but the animations look fine and it looked pretty cool to be able to see him hop over a fence or hop up on the boxes. I'm a little worried because the one thing that this game needs more than all of that stuff is the ability to just step over curbs without getting locked into an animation or something like that. They didn't show that. I'm very scared that the vaulting mechanic will not include that or include that in a bad way, but include all these really cool, you can jump out of windows, which is sick, but we need to be able to just step up on a curve. But they did show that a little bit. He rattled off some quality of life improvements coming to the game and showed some graphics for some of these. He said we're going to be able to select the body part that we want for healing, kind of choosing our own priority there, which is very, very good. We're going to be able to toggle off and on helmet lights, which is good. They're completely useless because we don't have the ability to do that. We're going to be able to double click food and medicine to instantly use it. I think that's a very good quality of life change so that you're not accidentally discarding something, or it just reduces the amount of clicks to do what you want to do, which is great. And he said that there are some other big changes coming, including the ability to quick swap to your sidearm, something I've been asking for a very long time. So awesome quality of life improvements. There is a completely reworked trader menu that they showed, which is insane, which has all of the traders up at one time so that you can buy, sell, manage quests, quest items, the gear you want to put on, the clothing from Ragman, all from one screen, which is very, very cool. And he said that this is kind of like the beginning point of a lot of other changes they want to do. They showed a very early work in progress screenshot of full loadout gear preset, which is something the community has been begging for literally years. This is very, very exciting. And then they also showed a new menu for like your friends, who's in your group right now, if your friends are offline or online. And then you can even spy a little arena badge there that can let you know if they're online in the arena or something, which is pretty cool. They rattled off a few new weapons and showed some screenshots. The first one, I didn't know what it was called. It looked like a VAL or VSS, but like submachine gun, the AK-12, and that entire family of AKs. I believe it's the ASVT or the AVT. The SCAR grenade launcher, the SCAR underbarrel grenade launcher finally, which is awesome, and the VSK sniper rifle. There's obviously a ton more weapons coming to the game, but these are just ones that they showed. Additionally, they actually showed some screenshots of the custom plates that we're going to be able to put into our armor. Now, a bunch of different features have been clumped up into this, and he made some kind of points here that the custom rig feature has been cut as of now. He would love for it to come into DLC, but we're not going to be able to customize our rigs, which is just the ability to say, I want a 2x2 here and a 1x1 here and a 1x3 here. However, what we will be able to do is put custom plates in the armors that we have. So they showed a Gazelle. So you could potentially put a class 6 plate into a Gazelle, or find a Gazelle and throw a really cheap class 2 or 3 plate in if that's all you have on you. The ability to repair those plates independently of the rig around it, and all sorts of stuff like that. And then he also confirmed that the custom hitboxes and custom armor zones, which is really just going to be an armor's only going to protect you where it physically shows it's protecting you. So something that only protects half of your arm is only going to protect half of your arm. If you get shot in the lower part of your arm, it's actually going to do flesh damage. So a bunch of different features have been wrapped up into that, and he kind of made that a little bit clearer. He teased a little bit of some Hideout expansions. They showed a video of little animations that are going to play at each station in the Hideout. But they didn't really talk about any new modules or new features that are coming, other than just the fact that he said that there have been some teases hidden in some of the media that they've put out. So go ahead and look for that. And of course, the final, biggest, and most important thing that they talked about was the arena. They showed a brand new arena teaser, which is insanely cool. It showed off a bunch of different things and really got the hype up for it, the game mode for sure. They've put a ton of work into arena. There's going to be 2 game modes initially, 4 locations. There's going to be a kill cam, which they showed multiple times in the trailer. He said that they're doing an entirely new matchmaking system that's supposed to be much, much faster. And if it works well, it's going to eventually come into Escape from Tarkov, which is very good. They talked about custom games and that they've put a lot of effort into basically giving us an editor and allowing us to change the rules or the way that the arena game modes function so that we can create custom games. They're going to run their own tourneys. We're going to be able to run our own tourneys without needing BSG's approval. That's very awesome. The server tick rate is going to be increased. He just keeps saying in line with modern competitive shooters. I don't know what that is. He didn't give a date on arena or any sort of testing, unfortunately, other than over the next 6 months, keep your ear to the ground and we'll give information as it comes. So I was really, really hoping we would actually get some information on when the arena's coming, but it's kind of just soon TM. And then I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of little things that they mentioned throughout that didn't really fit in any category. They said there's going to be a new interface for loading ammunition. We're going to be able to manually adjust scope brightness. They're going to rework more UIs, rework the quests, rework the skills. Bipods and the ability to mount weapons will be in the game, and a lot more Lightkeeper stuff that they want to keep secret. He talked about how this is a very complicated game and that they don't want to spend multiple more years developing it and just end up in development hell. So some of the original features that they had planned that they wanted to come into the game have gotten cut completely, and some features have been moved out till DLC. That's very understandable. I think the entire player base at this point would rather them focus on fixing what works, getting the required features in, and pushing this to a much more playable state. So that, I think, is a good thing. They ended the podcast with showing the first episode of the second season of the Chronicles of Rigi. This is really cool stuff. There's a lot of lore in here, and there ends up being a lot of teases to stuff that's coming. This one was very, very focused on the arena and really in a big way teasing this concept that if an arena match doesn't end in enough time, that they will send in a basically wave or waves of scavs to clean up the match and ensure that it ends in a timely manner. So that's just about it. I know this was dense, this was a lot, but this really set a new bar for transparency from Battlestate Games. Not only did they hit huge W's with like stuff that we've been asking for forever that they confirmed they are working on or coming to the game, but it looks like they've put a tremendous amount of work into networking, optimizations, anti-cheat, audio, all the stuff that we really, really need to change in order for this game to really be fun long-term. So that's super exciting. Let me know if I missed anything, or let me know down in the comments below what your favorite thing is, what you're looking forward to the most. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch 6 days a week. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. And if you're looking for people to play Tarkov with, our Discord server is an awesome place to be. That link is down below as well. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.